On Channel Africa, #on the move.
Well, in an age where CVs can be polished to perfection and qualifications may not always be what they seem, verifying a candidate's credentials, experience, and background is no longer just practice. It's essential, especially in a time where AI is used to adapt to different CV requirements, right? And what we always want to do when we're seeking for a job is for us to look like we are perfect for that particular job. And for employers, it's good for them to do verification because it protects against fraud, reputational damage, and poor hiring. For job seekers, it reinforces trust and levels the playing field. So what actually should be verified by yourself who's seeking the job or the employer? And what happens when verification processes are flawed or biased? We're joined by Human Resources Specialist Thando Mncube on the line. Thando, thank you for joining us right here on Channel Africa. Thando, are you there?
I'm there. Thank you so much, Benjamin, and thank you, Palesa, for having me this morning.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about this. It is no surprise that we're living in a world of AI, and we've always had these conversations around how to adapt your CV to a particular, job spec. And what we do at times, we just think that just adding that additional information that is in the job spec description is actually the way to go, even if you don't have those specific requirements, right? You know, those things seem very nuanced. They seem like small facts, little details. But should we be aware of those kind of things? Should we be more, slow when it comes to those kind of adaptations?
So definitely, Benjamin, I mean, first and foremost, as an employer, one of the critical things I'd be looking for in anyone that is coming to join me is their integrity and their honesty as a person. So already by misrepresenting what you're capable of, what you have done, and your experience, that causes a question when it comes to how honest you are as an employee. I think there's no harm in using all sorts of tools, be it ChatGPT or whatever other AI tool you want, to help best represent you, but it is critical that it is still you that you are representing.
I like the fact that you say it's you, but the you can be relatively, nuanced, because the person who's employing me does not know, Thando, who I really am, and they don't know the systems of where I used to work. So that rationalization is usually something that we utilize. Why is it so flawed?
It is quite flawed because inevitably the truth will come out. I mean, we've all seen the memes that have been going around where, someone said they're wonderful on Excel and then the manager says, present something on a spreadsheet, and the person has no idea what the manager is talking about. So whether it is in the first week, the first month, but at some point, if you do not have a skill, that will definitely be picked up. I think it's important to note that depending on the job, the severity would be different. So as an example, if I claim to be a CA, there are a whole lot of legislative requirements that come with being a CA to enable me to do my job. And it is more serious. But even in your kind of entry level or lower level jobs, I think you are better off sharing what you do know. What I generally recommend that people do is show me that you've got the ability to learn the things that you don't know, as opposed to pretending that you know something, and when I expect you to deliver as your employer, you are unable to deliver.
It's easy to just go with the flow, right? And just to say, well, you know what? I'm going to put this whole thing into my AI. I'm going to put the specs of my CV in, or my job, the job that I want, into this AI machine, and I'm going to try mix things up. And that's okay, like you're saying, right? But you should do a fact check after that kind of editing, right? What should you be looking out for yourself as the job seeker when you are verifying your own information that you are sending to your possible employer?
I think, firstly, it's important to remember that misrepresentation of information is fraud, specifically when it comes to things like qualifications, and these are punishable by law. So that's the first thing that we need to be aware of. Secondly, in terms of most employment contracts, again, misrepresentation is a dismissible offense. So not even an opportunity to kind of explain why. All of these tools that we recommend people use when putting together their CVs or their resumes are exactly that. They're tools to help you. They do not take over your accountability to ensure that what you present is indeed fact. So, use whatever tool you want, but when you go back and you look at it, make sure that anything that you claim to have done, you actually have done. Any qualification that you claim to have, you actually do have. If it's still in progress, make it clear on your CV that I don't have this degree yet, but it is in progress. I think we've seen quite a lot of times in the recent past, where specifically in the public sector, there's been a lot of misrepresentation, and institutions of higher learning really take that personally because it's their reputation that is on the line. So should you get caught out, it's not just that your employer that is going to, have issue with your misrepresentation, but even those institutions, etc., that you're claiming to have been a part of.
Thando, is it still relevant to have that willingness to learn? Because, as you said, we might not have absolutely everything that's on the job scope. Maybe you are qualified, but there's certain things that you particularly haven't learned yet. It seemed like it was something that used to work back in the day, but it doesn't seem like a lot of employers are looking for people who still have some on-job training to do.
Well, I would like to differ with that point a little bit, Palesa. Globally and in Africa and South Africa, we are moving towards a more skills-based hiring environment as opposed to qualification-based. Because research says that the degree that you did, by the time you graduate with your degree, some of the information you did in your first year is already obsolete. So right. Yes, we are interested in your ability to learn. That is why your degree is important. However, I'm more interested to see, how willing are you to adapt to the changing world. You could have done an IT degree 10 years ago and still be irrelevant in this job market with things like AI and automation on the rise. So it's definitely critical that when you represent yourself, you show how, apart from whatever qualification you've done over your career, have been willing to, be agile, to adapt and to learn as you grow in your career.
I don't want to say that people lie, but I say the reason why others bend the truth is that they know that, AI is not one-sided. Employers are using AI as well. HR systems are using AI. And sometimes, many a times, in fact, these days, not an actual HR human holds your CV and looks through it. They're passed through these HR systems that are looking for the keywords that were in the job description. So people know this, and it's a new trick now. You take whatever's on the job post, you implement it within your CV, whether or not, I don't know, you've done it. So it's like bending the truth a little bit, maybe even lying, so that your CV can get into the next round where perhaps you will get an interview with an actual person. But you don't stand much of a chance of getting an interview if you don't really implement and sort of work through the system.
Sure. You're correct. And I think that's where you also need to be a little bit creative in your representation on your CV. So as an example, saying I have exposure to automation as opposed to saying I've done an automation project. You're still able to show that I've been exposed to it, but you're not claiming to be the expert in that area.
Okay, I like that. So, not saying that you have actually done something, which would be a lie and, of course, a criminal offense, versus saying, I've been in workspaces where I've been exposed to particular things or have varied interests in a particular thing that would also, sort of spotlight that through that AI systems that are being used. Well, we're going to leave it there. I think it's incredible what you're saying, and it's important because let's remind people, okay, here in South Africa in particular, it is a criminal offense to lie in your CV. And I know there are people who've actually gotten persecuted for that. Oh,
wow. Okay, that's a big one. And then we're going to continue this conversation and look at it from the perspective of the employer. How do they actually verify and confirm a candidate's personal details, identity, and qualifications? Stay with us right here on Channel Africa.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
How should CVs or resumes be verified? What's the process that you need to take before submitting that CV into the particular employer? And how deep should employers go when verifying the information on that particular CV? We spoke about this and started the conversation with HR Specialist Thando Mncube, but now we continue it with Afika Nontso, founder and CEO of Spaan, which is a verification-led employment platform built to restore trust, expand access, and connect job seekers to real opportunities in South Africa. Afika, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's an incredibly important conversation, not just because of the rate of our unemployment levels here in South Africa and the continent over, but because young people want to know how to land the job. There's so many of us and very little jobs out there.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for having me, Palesa and Benjamin. I think with our platform, we sort of prioritize verification, as a key component in what we do. It is a platform built in trust, and our mission is sort of to restore trust back into the job market. And how we're actually going about that is to basically offer job seekers a platform where they're able to register and actually verify key documents, that basically confirm who they are. So our verification services on the platform goes from verifying a person's ID so that we can be sure that this person is who they say they are. Mm-hmm. I mean, these days you've seen a rise of a lot of remote work, hybrid work, and all of that kind of stuff. So, we sort of want to be able to be sure, that this person's ID that they're submitting to me, is exactly, the ID that has been submitted. And I think Thando also touched on the qualification aspect, where employers really want to know that this qualification that you say you have is indeed a qualification that you actually did. And part of our verification services actually does cover qualification verification, where a job seeker is able to actually upload their qualification, and we actually do that verification, and mark it as a verified qualification, so that when an employer actually gets to see this person's profile on Spaan, they're able to tell that, this person's ID has been verified, this person's driver's license has been verified, this person's matric certificate has been verified, and whatever qualification that this person has actually uploaded against their profile, these too have been verified. So that's basically the approach that we have taken, to ensure that we give job seekers, a way to stand out in the job market, by having a verified profile. And the idea behind this is, we want employers to know the verification status of each candidate before they even go through the entire recruitment process. So from the minute you actually submit your CV, what we're calling all job seekers to do, and all employers to even request that, submit this CV, but also attach your Spaan report with it, because the Spaan report will actually from upfront tell the employer exactly what the verification statuses are of your qualifications, exactly what the verification statuses are of your personal identity, your ID, your driver's license, your bank account. And over and above this, our platform also does criminal and fraud checks. So even on the Spaan report, the employer will be able to know exactly your background. Do you have a criminal record? Do you have a fraud record? Do you exist in the South African fraud database? And that's what this Spaan report basically equips the employer with. And this is what sort of job seekers are able to use as their badge of honor. Saying, look, I'm not just here looking for work, but I'm actually a verified individual, and here's my Spaan report to prove it.
Yeah, I like the idea of this one, because certifying this document. I need to go to the police station and fix this, and at times it's so much work when you can have just one centralized system that can help you with the verification process. Is that where this idea came from?
Yeah, so we sort of noticed that, as we, moving forward with life and as the years are going by, employers are placing quite more emphasis on ensuring that candidates are verified. That's why you've got organizations such as MIE that exist And MIE is actually our verification partner. So we're not saying, guys, trust us as Spaan to tell you that this person is actually verified.
Yeah.
Whereas we are working with a company that is trusted, and we've actually integrated into their systems to ensure that we get the correct details of these candidates. And MIE is already, a company that is already being used by recruiters. It's already being used by employers. We're just saying, let's take that HR and administrative burden away from employers. Let's give the job seekers their own opportunity to sort of stand out in the job market, for themselves. And we see this even in the informal job market, right? So we're not only targeting or trying to be of value to organizations.
Yeah.
We find that a lot of people are being employed, and not necessarily by a company, but it could be a domestic worker being employed by a household. Even those kinds of people, they're letting people into their spaces, they're letting people into their houses, and what happens if trust wasn't a factor, right? Would we see more households hiring? Would we see, a household having 2 domestic workers instead of 1? Would we see a household, being more open to actually creating this employment? And outside of the corporate world, that's where sort of we found the sweet spot to say, it's not just for the formal job sector, but even in the informal job sector, people want to work with people they trust.
Yeah.
And the Spaan report does exactly that.
I'm glad that you mentioned the informal job sector because, platforms that are new have to be a good reflection of the landscape that we're in. And in the landscape of South Africa, for example, there are incredibly, big informal sector, even more than the formal job sector. And usually these are people who maybe have someone who's just written them a note somewhere, who work in people's houses. Maybe they stand by the corner and they do some bricklaying in a particular place. And
Exactly.
Those are not spaces where you have formal places or even a formal CV to actually reflect back on. Why was it so important to be a real reflection of what job looks like in the country?
Exactly. So we've built the platform to reflect the real job market of South Africa. So the journey that employers go through on our platform and the journey that job seekers go through on our platform is a reflection of how actually employment actually works, not just in the formal job market, but also in the informal. So you'll find that when you come into our platform, as an employer, you actually are able to search for jobs and actually find verified candidates. But the journey doesn't end there, right? On the platform, an employer is actually able to send a job offer because that's how real life works in South Africa, right? You meet someone, you meet a domestic worker, you say, okay, I need you to clean my house, I'm offering you 300 rand, right? We've put that entire journey onto our platform, right? And job seekers can actually receive job offers, accept job offers and reject job offers even through USSD. So we've made the platform to be very accessible, not just on a web-based portal, but even to those who don't have internet access. They can actually engage with this platform, engage with employers using USSD, which only requires airtime. Right? And you take that a notch up, you're able to do all of this functionality, search for jobs, apply for jobs using a WhatsApp bot, because not everybody has a laptop. You can actually upload your CV, you upload your ID, take a picture of your driver's license using this WhatsApp bot. But those who are a bit more technologically enabled, who have a laptop, who are able to scan documents, they can actually do all of this stuff using our web-based portal. And that's sort of the approach that we've taken, to sort of create a very inclusive job market, and that is very accessible to every South African. And what this basically allows us is that once I've done a job with you, you can actually leave a rating and a review for me, right? And I can leave a rating and a review for you as an employer. That way, we're not really relying on experience. If I said I'm good on Excel, I might find a review of an employer saying very sharp at Excel, or very good on Excel. And that's just, you're not just taking my word for it, but you're taking other employers' word for the experience that I've done and the work that I've done.
100%.
And you can find yourself being the only 5-star rated bricklayer in the country, and you can actually now say, I'm the best bricklayer in the country, and that doesn't become hearsay. You can say, go look on Spaan, tell me if you can find any other 5-star rated bricklayer, and we're giving these undervalued contributors a voice and the ability to actually be seen, because they are contributors, but they might not be valued because they're seen as, you're just a bricklayer, you're just a domestic worker, you're just a cleaner.
All right,
the platform gives them that voice.
Well, we'll need to leave it there. We've run out of time. Let us know where we can find out more information about this Spaan platform.
Yeah, people can register on our website, www.spaan, that's spelled spaan.co.za. You can register a profile, but you can also dial our USSD code, *120 *Spaan hash, that's 77226 hash. And you can also catch us on our socials, Spaan_ZA. Over there, you'll be able to follow our story, follow what we're doing, and also be able to access our WhatsApp bot for further engagement and registration.
Thank you so much for your time, Afika. That's Afika Nontso, founder and CEO of Spaan, a verification-led employment platform here in South Africa. 10:31 Central Africa time. Let's get our latest sports news.